Even if you've been using Windows forever, there are probably a lot of settings that you never realized were on by default, and should probably change. These might be settings for privacy, convenience, or just usefulness in general. So in this application hardening module we're going to go over a bunch of settings in Windows application, specifically Windows 10. First up, let's head to the Windows Update settings. To get to the main settings window, you just click the Start menu. Then click the gear. Go to Update and Security. Then look for Advanced Options, and then click Choose How Updates Are Delivered. Here you'll want to make sure the setting at the bottom is set to PCs on my local network, and not the other one with PCs on the internet. What that would do is download parts of updates from other people who have the update on the internet, to supposedly make the downloads faster. But it would also send parts of your updates to other people, using up a bandwidth. On your local network it doesn't really matter, but you can disable this altogether by switching the toggle above to off. Next, let's change some Wi-Fi settings. Back in the main settings window, go to Network and Internet, then the Wi-Fi tab. Under Wi-Fi services, you'll see two options talking about suggested open hotspots. I would disable both of those. Suggested hotspots are supposed to be hotspots that Microsoft has deemed legit, and this would allow your computer to connect to them automatically. But open hotspots are inherently insecure, so you never want your computer to connect to any network without asking you first. Now we can go through a bunch of privacy settings, which is the part of application hardening, and get those out of the way all at once. So start out going to Settings, then Privacy. First we'll start out in this General tab. You'll definitely want to uncheck the first box, and probably the second box as well. These basically allow websites and apps to track you based on a unique advertiser ID, in order to learn more about you and show you more relevant ads. The next one about your language list might not matter, but I just have it disabled. If you use a language other than English, maybe keep that enabled. The third setting is also something you may or may not want to disable. It basically keeps track of which programs you launch most frequently, so you can have a most used list in the Start menu. If you don't care about that, disable it. The next tab we're going to look at is Speech, Inking, and Typing tab. This feature basically keeps record of everything you type or say to Cortana, the virtual assistant, and apparently uses it to get to know you, and make better suggestions. For those of you who don't use Cortana, it's definitely something you want to disable. So just turn that off. Moving on, head to the Location tab. Very straightforward. If you don't want Windows apps using your location, turn this off. If you have some apps you do want to allow, you can turn the feature on, and individually enable and disable apps in the list after scrolling down. The next tab is Feedback and Diagnostics, which adjusts how Windows will track how you use Windows, and then send it back to Microsoft. Unfortunately, Microsoft doesn't make it easy to disable completely. But you'll at least want to change this from full to basic, to minimize what they collect. Otherwise, look what it tracks. Browser usage, like what websites you visit probably. Feature usage, which could mean anything. Inking and typing data, which is literally anything you type. So yeah, you really want to not have it on full. And maybe disable the toggle below about tailored experiences too. And finally, for privacy settings, these actually are for Cortana specifically. To access these, click the Cortana button, then the gear, or search for Cortana settings in the Start menu. If you don't use Cortana, you basically want to turn all of these off. If you do use Cortana, you can go through these and change what you want it to track. But I definitely suggest disabling Cortana on the lock screen, otherwise some person might be able to access a lot of your data even when the computer is locked. Alright, now let's do something about all those annoying notifications Windows seems to give you all the time. So head to Settings, System, Notifications, and Actions. I personally wouldn't disable notifications altogether because they can be useful, but if you see one app that is particularly annoying, you can scroll down and disable its ability to show notifications. Back up top, you probably want to disable the option to show notifications on the lock screen. As you know, a notification can sometimes show private information, like emails. Also, I'd enable the one that says hide notifications when duplicating the screen. Say you go to do a presentation, and you hook the computer up to a projector, you again don't want some notification popping up on the screen with sensitive content for all to see. Now you don't have to worry about that. Finally, you can disable notifications for tips and tricks, which could be annoying. Speaking of annoying, let's disable the obnoxious suggested apps you see in the Start menu, which are essentially advertisements. In Settings, go to Personalization, Start, and disable where it says occasionally show suggestions in Start. Next up, there's a setting we want to change under Settings, Gaming, Game DVR. You almost definitely want to disable the one that says Record in the background while I'm playing a game. Leaving this on means anytime you're playing a game, it will constantly be recording video, even if you don't save it, which will use up resources and could severely affect performance. One setting you might want to enable in gaming is Game Mode, which will only show up if you have the latest Creators Update version of Windows. This setting supposedly might free up system resources for your games if your computer is really crappy. Though another tech channel, Linus Tech Tips, did some tests, and found it made little difference on reasonably powered computers, and might actually decrease performance in that case. So probably keep this disabled unless you have a really old computer.